Welcome to the Evergreen and Grand study presentation. The Evergreen and Grand corridors are part of the Commercial Corridors Strategy community planning process. The goal of this process is to enhance existing commercial corridors, increase walkability, ensure access to services and amenities, support job growth, and increase housing opportunities. The larger commercial corridor strategy also includes the St. John's-St. James Couplet and Fourth Plain and Mill Plain boulevards, but COVID-19 impacts have postponed the study of these sets of corridors. These corridors will be revisited in future years as resources allow. The Evergreen and Grand Corridors study area includes only those parcels highlighted directly adjacent to either Evergreen or Grand boulevards. These parcels share many unique attributes that have drawn recent development interest. The City of Vancouver has embarked on a community planning process for the Evergreen and Grand commercial corridors that is intended to support neighborhood livability and create a walkable environment where small businesses can thrive. Through this process, the city will evaluate the types of uses that are allowed, the pedestrian environment, building orientation in relation to the street, parking and access, and other issues identified by the community. In November 2019, Vancouver City Council enacted a temporary moratorium on new development for this area to allow time to update the appropriate development regulations and ensure that new uses and structures are compatible with the community vision. As a result of the economic impacts of COVID-19, in May 2020, the City of Vancouver lifted the moratorium to provide flexibility for businesses and property owners impacted by the pandemic, but directed the project team to continue with the long-term planning currently underway. The City of Vancouver is using online feedback during COVID-19 as an alternative to more traditional engagement activities such as public meetings, open houses, and hearings to reach as many people as possible. For those that cannot participate in online events, staff are available to talk over the phone. If you know someone who'd like to do this, please direct them to contact project staff or provide staff with their contact information. This project timeline identifies past, current, and future opportunities to provide input by attending a live virtual meeting, participating in an online survey after seeing a short presentation, or communicating directly with the project team. This short presentation focuses on the vision for the corridors, along with supporting goals and objectives. Later this fall, there will be opportunities to provide input on the concepts and recommendations that work to achieve the vision. Late this year or early next year, there will be final public hearings before the Planning Commission and City Council with opportunities to provide comments before adoption. Input activities will be hosted on Be Heard Vancouver, the city's online public engagement platform, as they become available. The community will be able to view the short presentations and provide input through the online survey. The vision presentation and online survey will be available following these live virtual open houses, and the public will be notified about future opportunities through the project email list and on the project website. The Evergreen and Grand Commercial Corridors planning process kicked off with a community open house and online survey last February, which engaged residents, property owners, and business owners and other stakeholders. The intent of the open house was to provide the opportunity for the community to help identify issues, opportunities, and priorities that shaped a vision for the Evergreen and Grand corridors. Over 40 community members attended and participated in interactive open house activities. The open house consisted of a 20-minute slideshow that included a presentation by the consultant of existing land use and existing transportation conditions along the corridors, a breakout session that included roundtable discussions. Participants at each table were asked on a study map to identify areas of opportunity or concern, uses they thought were currently missing from the study area, and types of uses they didn't want to see along the corridors. The results include a summary of table group discussions, individual response sheets and oral comments from the open house, and the results of an online survey from those who were unable to attend. The following is a brief presentation of the corridor's vision. At the conclusion of the presentation, you'll be asked to participate in an exercise with questions and opportunities to provide comments prior to opening up to a Q&A with city staff and the project team. The feedback from the kickoff open house was used to develop a vision statement that describes the community's long-term vision for the Evergreen and Grand corridors. It'll be used as a tool to guide the creation of concepts and provide direction for any potential new policies or regulations in the next phases of this project. Based on community input, the vision statement includes key statements that describe what the community aspires for the corridors to be. The first is to promote equitable and diverse corridor development that is vibrant, sustainable, and mixed use. The second is to foster development that recognizes and builds upon the neighborhood's unique setting, history, culture, and character. The commercial area within Hudson's Bay consists of mostly small service-oriented businesses, a larger medical clinic, and a bowling center. Because eastbound traffic is routed on a Mill Plain Boulevard and Evergreen is not used as a business route for general commercial uses, those businesses along Evergreen are limited in their exposure to prevalent traffic patterns. Grand Boulevard, which forms the eastern boundary of the neighborhood, is a major arterial for north-south traffic, connecting light industrial areas near SR 14 and the waterfront with residential and commercial areas to the north. Several vacant parcels in the commercial zone are available for future development. To further describe the vision statement, there are 5 goals and objectives derived from community comments of the open house. The goals and objectives provide specific detail for land use, mobility, economic development, urban design, and parking. Successful places require retaining and attracting private investment. A recent market analysis for Vancouver indicates strong demand for housing, with commercial and retail uses only playing a secondary and supporting role. Many commercial uses have also been hurt by the COVID-19 pandemic. To avoid adding additional economic stress, new competing commercial uses should generally not be promoted in the short term. However, long-term, as the corridor emerges from the current recession, infill or redevelopment of the corridors should strengthen current businesses while providing an appropriate mix of new commercial and residential uses. New uses should fill the gaps of land uses that are currently missing, like different types, sizes of housing at a variety of price points, and amenities to serve residents and visitors such as eating and drinking establishments, small-scale retail shops, parks, plazas and open space, a local grocer, and more. A mix of uses is needed to create a vibrant and healthy corridor. That means providing viable opportunities for new retail and dining uses that attract local and regional businesses. Small-scale, incrementally developed buildings are envisioned. New development should be required or encouraged to replicate the scale, form, and massing of historic buildings. Supporting a mix of uses that serve the daily needs of surrounding neighborhood residents and employees, such as grocery stores, medical offices, coffee shops, restaurants, daycares, and other services. These new anchor uses should support locally owned and operated businesses. While national brand or chain uses may be appropriate and desirable, efforts to limit the number and location of these uses should be explored in order to maintain the unique existing charm of the Hudson's Bay neighborhood. Allowing a variety of housing types to serve a range of needs, preferences, ages, and incomes. These could include options for condominium lofts, live-work, and apartment housing types where appropriate. Discouraging adding more motor vehicle-related uses in the corridors, such as service and repair shops, gas stations, etc. Discouraging nuisance uses that could lead to increased traffic or noise. And fostering street-oriented uses that create walking and biking activity throughout all business hours, all days, and all seasons. The focus of this planning effort is on the corridors. In those areas, there should be more options allowed for housing. These opportunities can result in more market rate or affordable housing choices that are inclusive for people of a variety of backgrounds and income ranges who live in the neighborhood or move to it as Vancouver grows over time. About 2/3 of the households near Evergreen and Grand are renters, and about 1/3 are owners. Average home values are similar to citywide, but rents are less, and so are average incomes. Just over 1/3 of local households are cost-burdened, meaning they need to spend more than 30% of their income on housing. The intent of the mobility goal is to establish a balanced multimodal network of motor vehicle, transit, walking, and biking routes through the corridors by providing a network of balanced, complete streets and paths that serve everyone regardless of age and physical ability. Mobility improvements should be integrated into the land use framework, thereby resulting in shorter trips by all modes and in turn providing economic benefits for corridor residents and businesses. When design serves the most vulnerable, it serves everyone. Mobility objectives address a full range of elements such as driving lanes, sidewalks, bicycle lanes, bus stops, crosswalks, curb extensions, street furnishings like benches, and landscape treatments. This means providing improvements that reduce motor vehicle-related crashes to protect the most vulnerable road users, people of all ages and abilities who walk, bike, and use transit. Providing safe and direct sidewalk and bike lane routes and intersection crossings within and to the corridors for all, regardless of age and ability, is a must. Mobility improvements should maximize opportunities for corridor residents, visitors, and employees to fully utilize the future of Vine bus rapid transit planned for Mill Plain. Objectives include safe first and last mile walking and biking routes that provide connections to transit, including the planned Mill Plain bus rapid transit line and existing bus routes. These connections make walking and biking a viable option not only for getting around within Evergreen and Grand, but also for accessing transit and destinations throughout the community. And ways to enforce or design changes that limit excessive speed on Evergreen and Grand should be studied, along with means to discourage neighborhood cut-through traffic and employing effective traffic calming measures. Finally, maintaining access for emergency, service, maintenance, delivery, and personal vehicles to business. Motor vehicle access positively contributes to economically vibrant corridors, and good design will ensure that vehicles and people walking, biking, rolling, and taking transit can all safely access and move through the corridors. The intent of the parking goal is to provide adequate parking to serve existing uses and future development. Adequate parking should be provided for both commercial and residential uses, while not burdening the potential redevelopment with unnecessary parking and infrastructure costs that may limit or discourage redevelopment or unnecessarily increase the costs of housing and commercial rents. That means supporting existing and future retail uses by providing adjacent short-term curbside parking and bike parking as appropriate. Along Evergreen and Grand, higher turnover of on-street parking should be encouraged through policies, regulations, and street design. Employee parking on prime on-street locations in front of commercial businesses should be discouraged. Minimizing impacts of parking on the walking and biking environment. Where motor vehicle features such as driveways, parking lots, and service areas exist, maintain a safe and comfortable environment for people walking and biking. For example, require parking lots to be screened and located behind buildings rather than in front, and try to consolidate driveways as much as possible. Limiting excess spillover parking into adjacent residential areas through strategies that may range from design improvements such as physical diverters to policies and programs such as residential parking permits, and right-sizing parking requirements that may stifle development through creative strategies such as reducing parking requirements or development of shared public parking lots to meet future increased commercial and residential parking demand. The urban design goal of the corridors is to create public and private spaces that are inclusive, integrated, and contribute positively to the livability of the corridor. The public realm, the spaces between buildings, building edges, and the public open spaces, must contribute to economic development and the livability of the corridors. Evergreen and Grand Boulevard should be more than just conduits for moving people through the neighborhood. They should include placemaking improvements that result in a setting that spurs high-quality, desirable development and makes people want to stay and visit businesses on the corridor. This means creating opportunities for cultural, community, and other amenities that attract customers and strengthen businesses, and encouraging safe and active public spaces that are inclusive, accessible, and comfortable for all residents, customers, employees, and visitors. A range of passive and active public spaces should be created that are universally accessible, and encouraging new public spaces that contribute to the livability and economic vitality of the corridors. Fostering a distinct identity and improving corridor aesthetics by improving the amount of cohesive landscaping and streetscape features. Streetscape improvements should be designed through the lens of those walking and biking rather than those driving. Promoting sustainable design for buildings, sites, and streets. Policies, regulations, and design guidelines that ensure the authentic and historical character of the neighborhood are preserved. And ensuring that form, massing, and scale of new development is context sensitive and supports and strengthens the livability of the corridors. The economic development goal of the corridors is to provide multiple opportunities for small-scale, locally owned businesses to thrive. Public actions necessary to generate a sustained and widespread private investment while addressing goals and objectives of the corridors should be explored. That means strengthening existing local and small businesses by establishing programs and tools to support their economic viability. Discourage displacement by identifying policies, programs, or other measures to address affordability concerns and wealth creation opportunities for residents and businesses. Actions that can address the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic should be encouraged. Maximizing redevelopment opportunity sites. Through this process, recommendations that are achievable and can be completed or initiated using existing or additional public financial and staff resources in a short, mid, and long-range time frame should be identified. Implement policies, programs, and other tools to mitigate the ongoing impacts of the coronavirus pandemic. And finally, provide regulatory flexibility to foster innovation and creativity. As these recommendations are refined, additional planning and design actions might be needed. Where necessary, more specific changes to other plans and other planning efforts could be required. The results of the public input on the vision, goals, and objectives will be shared with City Council during a work session on September 14th. Following input from Council members, vision concepts and recommendations for any changes in policies or zoning codes will be created and will be presented online for your review and input later this fall or winter. This concludes the presentation. Now please take a moment to respond to the following questions. Thank you very much for taking the time to participate in the Evergreen and Grand study.